So we have our last but not least segment of the day to Miss Carrie Kellenberger, and she is located in Taiwan. And yeah, let's see what she talks about advocacy on the international stage and how it is for her to participate in advocacy in a foreign country.
Hi, friends. Hello, AI arthritis friends. Welcome to my several worlds. I'm Carrie Kellenberger, tuning in from beautiful Taiwan, and I'm so pleased to be here today for World AI Arthritis Day. Thanks so much to Tiffany, Layla, Michael, and the amazing team at AI Arthritis for checking in on all my health drama over the past year. And thanks for having me here today again for the second time. This is my second time joining World AI Arthritis Day initiatives. So I'm thrilled to be here. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my advocacy journey and how I got my axe spot and psoriatic arthritis diagnoses. You've likely already heard a lot about life with autoimmune arthritis and what to expect from previous presenters, but there is a lot more to come. So make sure you stay tuned because I know Tiffany and her amazing team of race car drivers have got some amazing stuff set up for us today. So I thought it would be helpful to help people understand a little bit about what I do and how a lone patient in Taiwan breaks into international advocacy without the help of or assistance from large nonprofit organizations. So that's what today's presentation is about. So let's get this party started. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about who I am, how I started myseveralworlds.com and what it is. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my autoinflammatory arthritis diagnoses in Taiwan while navigating a foreign healthcare system. A full disclosure that we have over 1 million foreigners here in Taiwan out of a population of 24 million. So there is a high number of patients here who are trying to navigate their appointments in Chinese and English or in another language. And yes, full disclosure, I started my appointments back in 2009 in Chinese, and now I'm doing mixed appointments in Chinese and English. Thankfully, my rheumatologist speaks fluent English, but my caseworker, she speaks very limited English. So it's a challenge. It's not easy, but I've got you covered. And I'm also going to tell you a little bit about how to help other people navigate their own appointments and talk a little bit about how my articles and information ended up reaching a global audience. And then we're going to talk finally about how I got started in health advocacy and what advocacy can look like in other countries and how we can advocate from an international stage. So you're probably wondering, who is Carrie Kellenberger, especially if you haven't heard of me before. In short, I'm a Canadian patient advocate and a support group leader who's been living in Taiwan for the past 20 years. I moved to Asia in 2003 as an ESL teacher, and I lived in China for 3 years before immigrating to beautiful Taiwan in early 2006 with my husband. And I taught ESL for many years before I took a job in a publishing house in Taipei. I've got a lot of professional writing and editing experience. And then in 2012, I became a business owner. I own a Taiwanese company called Reach to Teach Recruiting. So amongst all of this, I've also been blogging and advocating at My Several Worlds since 2007. And I started really advocating strongly for chronic illness awareness in 2009 after finally getting an answer to health problems that had been plaguing me since my teen years. Most people go home when they find out that they have a life-changing diagnosis, but not me. At that time, my healthcare in Canada had expired. So if I went back to Canada, I have to wait 3 months for my Ontario healthcare insurance to be reinstated. Then I have to find a primary care physician, and the wait times in Canada are very long for that. And then once I've seen and met with my primary care physician, then I have to go on a wait list to see a specialist. And I don't know what your arthritis is like, but my arthritis is very active and very destructive. I'm a difficult to treat patient. I could not wait years in order to see a specialist in Canada. So we ended up deciding to stay in Taiwan, where I have immediate access to specialists and tests. My hospital is 7 minutes away. I see my rheumatologist once a month. I would prefer that I saw him less than that. I mean, I love him. He's a great guy. But, going to the doctor once a month it can be a lot. I'm also an award winning blogger and a published author, and I'm an accomplished professional singer who gave up a 20-year career in music because of throat problems and voice problems related to chronic inflammation. But while I was on stages, I was doing a lot of television work and news interviews over the years on a wide range of topics. I even had my own radio show 20 years ago. And obviously, I'm a retired world traveler. I was able to travel to 35 different countries before I had to stop traveling due to illness. So, what is My Several Worlds? My Several Worlds is about the worlds that I live in, and it's about the boundaries that blur between my worlds as I move through them. I started it initially as a travel and culture website to update my friends and family back home about our world travelers and our life in Taiwan. It's actually named after an American author's autobiography of the same name. So her name was Pearl S. Buck, and she was a missionary who lived half of her life in China and the rest of her life in the U.S. From 1914 to the late 1930s. So My Several Worlds felt like the perfect title for me to start my travel blog on. It was the only book that I took to China with me. It was a book that prepared me for my life in China, and it's also one of my prized possessions. So once I got started with blogging, my site quickly became ranked as one of the top 20 travel blogs in the world by 2009. And I continued with that success. And then when I got sick, I had no idea where to take my highly successful travel blog. I had carved this professional travel writing career out of my travel blog, and I was writing for magazines like Travel and Leisure Asia. I'd done some stuff for Lonely Planet, and then suddenly I couldn't travel anymore, so I didn't know what to do. But then I ended up rereading My Several Worlds for like the umpteenth time, and I decided to focus on my immigrant story in Taiwan and talk about the lack of communication that happens at my healthcare appointments because of the language differences. And it didn't take me long to realize that there is a huge gap in information for patients who need English resources in Taiwan specifically and in Asia. And then I learned even further that my global audience of readers really appreciated the simple how to articles that I was producing for patients on my website. And as we all know, convergences like ACR and summits, they've already started touching on the topic of producing articles and research for patients in different languages, and that has just started in 2023 and 2024. But I was doing it 20 years ago. So I'm glad the rest of the world is catching up with what I already know. And I have that experience because I don't live in a Western country. So my mission now is to connect, educate, and inspire chronically ill patients around the world while also providing those much needed resources in English to patients in Asia, because I never want anyone to feel the way I felt living in a foreign country and navigating a foreign healthcare system in a different language with no one to ask for help. So you are not alone. And as it turns out, you could see my Chinese name here. My Chinese name is 微笑天使, and that means smiling angel. So I think it's an apt name, as many people have often commented that I came into their lives at the perfect time. So moving on to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about advocacy events in Taiwan. I mentioned that I got my first diagnosis, axial spondyloarthritis, in 2009. And at that time, I had no one to turn to, especially in Taiwan. Plus, there was not a lot of online information in general anywhere. for AXPA patients. Back then, we were referring to it as ankylosing spondylitis. So, of course, I hopped on that topic pretty quickly and I started blogging about it and releasing information across my social media channels. And it didn't take long for people to find me and for patients to start asking questions. So, and I had so many people asking questions that I decided I'd try an awareness event, like a picnic in Taipei, to see if we could have some fun and then I could talk to people about axial spondyloarthritis. And what you see on these slides are some of the awareness events that I've hosted, and I was shocked by the number of people that came out to my events. So the middle picture here on this slide is actually my mom and dad, and they were co-hosting events in Canada for me. And that meant that I could kind of do some double dipping with Taiwan and Canada. And all those amazing folks that you see that are kneeling down on their knees, those folks are my former teachers, high school teachers, and track coaches and sports coaches from high school, and they all go out to walk for awareness every month, every May with the Walking Spondies. All right, so my health advocacy journey in Taiwan, as I've mentioned, I was alone and on my own with 3 devastating and disabling diagnoses. No one told me what to expect. No one explained the differences between axial spondyloarthritis and fibromyalgia, for example. There were no resources for me to look up, and patient support groups were quite hard to access. So I decided to start some. And by 2014, I was becoming a pretty well-known arthritis advocate in Taiwan, and people were starting to know me as that arthritis woman or that arthritis girl, both in Taiwan and abroad. So my events have been featured in the Taipei Times and across all sorts of news channels in Taiwan and in Asia. People were starting to reach out. The one thing that I really want to mention is rheumatoid arthritis tends to get all of the attention. But in the past 16 years that I've been advocating for AXPA awareness, I'm really pleased and surprised by the progress that we've seen in our community and the progress that we've had with doctors and patients who are becoming more educated about it. We now know that AXPA is just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, than rheumatoid arthritis. All right, so my next slide, why do we advocate? In simple language, effective advocacy promotes social change. We advocate to process our feelings. Talking about our feelings helps us process what we're going through. We also advocate to tell our stories. And I'm a writer, so I'm going to tell you right now that storytelling is the fabric of societal change. Stories resonate with people. People don't resonate with facts. They resonate with other people and personal stories. And change starts to happen when you're outraged about learning about what someone else you know is going through. We want to change that. We want to help them. And finally, we advocate to help other people. Most advocates that I know are advocating because they know that if they can help just one person on their journey, then their mission is complete. But that's not all of the reasons why we advocate. We also advocate to educate. So advocacy and education, they work together. Reaching out to veteran patient leaders such as myself or to people who are going through it is the first thing that newly diagnosed patients do. I have some citations that point to those studies later on in this presentation, but I really want to make sure that I highlight that. We advocate to make connections. Connections allow us to develop friendships with people who understand what we're going through, and then we get support from both sides. And of course, we advocate to let others know that they're not alone. I can't tell you how many times somebody has reached out to me and said, "Oh my gosh, Carrie, me too. I'm so glad I met you because I've met somebody that finally gets it." So, how to get started in international advocacy. I've put this timeline together. I share it pretty regularly in presentations and on my site, and people are always surprised. They think it's really complicated, and then they see these 5 steps and they're like, "Oh, I could do that." So, step 1, obviously, is locate and follow advocates from other countries. Don't just follow advocates in your own country. There are advocates all around the world, and it's great to know what other people are doing. Step two, share your experiences. Tell us your story, listen and be supportive. Experiences obviously differ everywhere, but it's really important to share so we can all learn from those differences. So, one example that I can pop in here really quickly that I see happen time and time again in my support groups, before you go mentioning something casually like medical marijuana, it might be wise to know that some people can't access it. I'm Canadian, so obviously I can access it in Canada, but in Taiwan, medical marijuana is listed in the same category as heroin and ecstasy. So, people can get really upset when you're talking about things that might not be necessarily available in their area, or maybe they're illegal in their area. So it's always good to know what you're recommending and what's available in and out of the countries that you're looking and advocating within. Also, step three, step up that technology game. Technology is the only advantage that international advocates have, in my personal opinion. That is because we can't attend support groups or summits in person. So polish up those tech skills and carve 15 minutes out of your day to check in with others and support their messages. Step four, focus on your message and hone in on advocacy issues in your area. Be concise, specific, and to the point, and try to remember that what's happening in your area, as I've already mentioned, might not be happening elsewhere, and try to acknowledge it just so people know that you're aware. And finally, step five, you need to consider your audience and show your audience that you care. So just be sure that you're supporting the people who are supporting you. Since my audience is global and I have people coming to my site from all over the world, I keep my content really clear and well written. I also go through all of my content each year and I update it, especially the citations. I want to make sure that my citations are not from like 2010. I find citations that are relevant, like within the last 3 years, and add that to my existing articles. So readers know that I am a trusted voice and a trusted source of information with cutting edge information. And a quick reminder, our voices are unified no matter where we live. It's no surprise that we see a massive difference in initiatives in Western countries like the US, Canada, and the UK. We also know that organizations often want to leverage assistance with patient advocates from these areas or in Europe. It's very rare for me to come across organizations that want to work with patients on my side of the world in Asia. And this started to really become more apparent during COVID. And this is actually the highlight, in my opinion, with COVID, is that organizations were forced to go online. And that's where global advocates really started to shine. That's when we started realizing that there were advocates all around the world who had these important messages to share. And then our world started getting a little bit smaller as we became more connected. And what I've learned is that virtual summits and technology is obviously opening up the world to all of us. And World AI Arthritis Day and what International Foundation of Autoimmune and Autoinflammatory Arthritis is doing, what they're doing right now with this race-a-thon is clearly opening up the world, because they are focusing on advocates from all over the world. And I think that's such an amazing thing to do. I want to remind you that we have the same challenges in helping to improve the experience that people have when they enter healthcare systems. So I'm closing in on the end of my presentation here. Stay tuned for a few more slides because I do have some featured advocates coming up. But in short, I want you to focus on these points. You can look for nonprofits in your area that you might be able to visit. You can look for somebody who speaks your language. I've done that. I've met Taiwanese nonprofits, and I've met folks in my area that speak a mix of English and Chinese. Look at who's speaking about the issues that you're interested in. Make a public testimony about your journey. And of course, as I said before, network and build those relationships. Share, share, share. That's what we do best. Now, some quick international advocacy tips, because people ask me this all the time. Clearly, hosting events was a huge help when I first got started on my advocacy journey. But here are some other quick tips that are really important if you're working with advocates around the globe. Be persistent and network, as I've already mentioned. Be ready to work opposite schedules. My work with North American nonprofit organizations often requires me to be up late into the night. The Spondylitis Association of America has never asked me to do late night sessions, but if I'm attending their Spondy Summit, part of my job is to live tweet about those sessions that I'm watching. And I've done the same thing with the American College of Rheumatology Convergence. So yeah, I've been doing calls with AI arthritis and the SAA often at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. my time. Poor Layla, for example, last year was up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. to make things work with me. Thank you again, Layla. I know I keep saying it, but that's because I've never been late. I'll never forget that you got up that early for me. And obviously, of course, be resourceful. If you start working in the middle of the night, start smart. Log in early, introduce yourself, and do some networking, post some live updates, and then announce it's time to go to sleep and remind people that you'll be back first thing in the morning with more thorough threads and information the next day. All right, my final plug here. Get involved with International Foundation for Autoimmune Arthritis and Autoinflammatory Arthritis. Advocates offer a variety of communication tools, AI arthritis in particular. They have articles, videos, podcasts, lectures, demonstrations, speeches, reports, and access to support groups and more. So it's worth your while to reach out to Tiffany and her team at AI Arthritis. See what you can get involved in. And I want to make a plug here to let you know again that patients rely overwhelmingly on other patients to disperse information. We need more visual, engaging content to inform and educate people about arthritis and related activities. Now, I'm concluding my presentation here on international advocacy from the international stage, but I put together this map last year. I want to feature it again to show you that a global presence is actually really happening with AI arthritis. So they have a copy of this map without my logo in the bottom of it. But here you can see we've got a lot of advocates in North America. You can see AI arthritis teams are over here. Spondylitis Association of America is here. We've got Christina in Canada and Eileen in Canada. They both do a lot of great work. There's Effie, who has just done an amazing project with her book on stories around the world, featuring 101 arthritis patient stories, with all proceeds going to AI arthritis. We've got folks over in the UK. So you met Joel last year. Plus, we've got NAS and the Axial Spondyloarthritis International Federation working from Europe. And then all the way over here in Asia, there's me at myseveralworlds.com in Taiwan, and also my friend Cheryl at A Chronic Voice and Dragonclaw. And you've seen all of these organizations and people presenting for AI arthritis. And finally, I want to conclude that these are some organizations that are open to working with international advocates. I can't thank these organizations enough. I'm putting my cursor here on AI arthritis because they are amazing. I'm constantly amazed at how often their team checks in to see how I'm doing. I can't thank them enough from the bottom of my heart. So I hope you'll get started today with your international advocacy. Remember, you can advocate no matter where you are in the world. And remember, each step forward is a step forward on a journey with advocacy. Be sure to learn to navigate your community and the global community. Make sure that you have someone in your corner, and that's all of us here at AI Arthritis. See you next year and enjoy the rest of the race-a-thon. Take care and bye-bye.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Carrie, for doing that amazing presentation for us and letting us know how important it is to be aware of the advocacy needed for those in other countries. Here at AI Arthritis, we do our best to make sure that we are aware of everything as much as we can going on internationally and figuring out how we can help and how we can partner with international advocates and international organizations to make the biggest difference possible. Because, of course, there is a lot going on in the US, but there's even more going on in the rest of the world. And so we make sure that we are aware and we educate ourselves and that we help as much as we can on the international stage as well. So thank you so much, Carrie, for that.